But when people say, oh, I've seen on your website you shake like this, and I don't. I'm like, yeah, okay, this is my body, and I've been practicing for 6 years. And your body is only just starting and is a totally different body. So you are holding stress most likely in totally different areas. Trust your body. You don't tell your body how to start your heartbeat. You don't tell your body how to start the digestive process. So you don't tell your body how to shake.
This conversation with Sylvia Tillmann made me realise how much stress we may be carrying in the body without even knowing it. In this conversation, we speak about tension and trauma releasing exercises, or TRE. Talk about how stress, anxiety, trauma, burnout, and even everyday pressure can live in the body, not just the mind. Sylvia explains how symptoms like jaw tension, back pain, headaches, exhaustion can sometimes be signs of an issue with your nervous system. What fascinated me most was the idea of shaking is not necessarily something to fear or suppress. It can be the body's natural way of releasing stress. TRE works with that natural tremoring process, helping reconnect with the body and finding different ways to do something. This conversation explores trauma, tension, burnout, nervous system, stress prevention, and the wisdom we hold in our bodies. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Sylvia Tillmann. So, welcome to Vantage Point Conversations. My name is Colin Parsons, and for those of you who have joined me before, welcome back. For those new, basically, this is where I get to have genuine conversations with people that I would probably have never met before. I met them through LinkedIn, started a conversation, and they've graciously said yes, they will come and have a conversation with me live on LinkedIn, and it is uploaded to YouTube later afterwards. Today, my guest. So I have to be careful here because your name is Sylvia, but I kept calling you Sylvie. Uh,
Totally
so,
fine.
but it's Sylvia Tillmann.
Totally fine.
Sylvia, always the opening few minutes of my conversations are always the same. I don't introduce my guests. It's not me being lazy. I just don't think I would do the best job. So just take as little time, as long time to introduce yourself, anything you think that you would like people to know about you, highlights, lowlights, anywhere in between. And then we just jump into the conversation from there.
Thank you, Colin. And thanks for your invitation, first of all. Um, yeah, I'm Sylvia Tillmann, and my friends, by the way, here in Kent, call me Sylvie. So you're in Luxembourg, but feel free to call me Sylvie as well. I'm a holistic practitioner, and I offer a range of modalities, mainly working with the body or energetically. But we are here today to talk about my favorite modality, and this is TRE, tension and trauma releasing exercises.
Amazing. Thank you. So I think there's certain conversations that I like to have, and I'm very interested. So I don't pretend that I know everything. I think that's just unwise. But there are, I think over the last, I don't know, let's say 10 years, I've been very interested in sort of self-discovery. I don't know if I mentioned this in our conversation before, but I went to therapy when I moved to Luxembourg because my world was turned upside down. It was my decision to come here, but I'd moved away from home and my family, my friends, my routine. I'd changed jobs. And I felt very insecure. And my girlfriend at the time, she said, "Oh, you're being quite I can't remember what she said, like violent in terms of the language that I was using." I think that makes it sound a lot worse than it actually is. But it was basically, I don't think she'd seen that side of me, and I was insecure, frustrated, things like it was all new to me. And so I actually went to a therapist, and it was one of the greatest things I've ever done because it sent me on this journey of self-discovery, understanding about myself. And there's so much to it. And once you dive into it, it can be a bit, you can get a bit self-involved. I understand that. I think I was looking for answers at one point. But what it actually allowed me to do is just take that sort of step back, and with someone independent of your family, your friends, etc., just
Absolutely.
have a conversation and see what's coming up, and being able to see patterns in your life. And it's very useful, especially when like I would go every week, and I went for a long time. I think about 6 years in the end,
Wow.
and it was really useful for me because the patterns are often uh, not in the same context. So, say I was feeling insecure, that showed up at work, or then I was feeling insecure, that showed up at home.
Mhm.
And oftentimes those things happen. They're not linear. They don't happen at the same time.
Yeah.
Something will happen, but they're all connected. And so
Yeah.
when when it comes to looking at those things, I love it when people look at things holistically. Um, I know a lot of people specialize in one certain area,
Mhm.
but I found it super interesting to look at all of my life in terms of what's going on externally with my environment. What am I doing physically, like
Mhm.
exercise?
Mhm.
Um, where is my head at? What am I consuming in terms of social media, input, all of these things. And when you take that step back, you can see a lot more patterns.
Yes.
And what I found it was really useful is having someone else sitting opposite you who was non-judgmental,
Yeah.
didn't come with too many expectations, because when you talk to your family and friends, they kind of know you or bring a lot of their own
Yes.
perspectives into your conversation. But it was fascinating. And ever since then, I'm whenever anything's going on, I sort of can sit with it and go, okay, what's actually going on? And it's not always just one thing. It can be a
Mhm.
combination, but we can't see those ourselves. So there's a lot about me, but just let's throw it back to you. How did you get into this work? I know we're going to talk about the trauma side, which I think trauma is super interesting, but how did you actually get into this work in the first place?
Good question. So I have a business background. My German career was in IT, and then when I moved to Edinburgh in 2001, I managed and expanded a few small businesses. But I've always been interested in alternative health. In the late 90s, a pharmacist, seeing my prescription, introduced me to TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, because she was like, "Do you really want to take that drug?" And I'm like, well, wow, if I mean, because I was like down the allopathic route, and what the doctor said was all right, and I just took the drug. And then she really, a pharmacist, remember? She really opened my mind. And so I saw this traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, and I was like, oh, wow, there is so much more we can do ourselves and take responsibility. So that was the first step. But I stayed in my business jobs, and the first job I held when I combined my interest in natural health with my business side of things was when I managed and expanded a health food shop in Edinburgh. I don't know if you know, he was very famous in the 80s, Jan de Vries health food shop in Edinburgh. And he was an allopathic, he was a naturopath, trained as a herbalist, and was extremely wise. And I learned so much from him, from sales reps, from clients, and I went more and more like, this is the way. I mean, nature has all the answers, and we can do so much without, yeah, the big drug, which mainly just masks the symptoms. And then fast forward to 2020, when the pandemic had hit, and I was in a really fortunate position. I was at home, I was on furlough, I had just moved to East Kent, and I was like, okay, what will I do with my life? And I started like with like learning business, I mean, training or looking into business courses and what can I train. And then I was like, no, the world doesn't need another business expert. We need good health. We need a good immune system. We need joy. We need laughter. We need whatever. So the first training I did was I trained as a laughter yoga leader. And in order to bring joy and good health to the world. And this was fun. But then the more I got into watching conferences about the pandemic and again alternative health, and the experts were saying we are going through a collective trauma, and I'm like, wow, I mean, I'm safe on my sofa, and I was really, really grateful. But I'm like, if it really, I mean, I know it was traumatic for so many people on the front line and in shops and at the the NHS and people in violent and domestic abuse situations and so on and so on. And I was like, how can I help these people? I mean, laughter obviously isn't enough. And I remembered TRE, tension and trauma releasing exercises, which I had experienced many years before COVID. I think it was 2013. And I remember TRE, looked into it. I remembered I had one session, found it a bit weird because, as I always say, you will be lying on your back on a yoga mat and like a beetle on your back. And then at one stage you start shaking and tremoring and your brain thinks, God, that's a bit weird. And that was my remembering the situation as well. But I also know and remembered I had the best good night's sleep ever. And it was hugely relaxing. So I looked again into TAE, started my training, and that rest really is history. In the meantime, I also learned it's not just because I was one of these people who dismissed trauma or having experienced any trauma totally. I mean, I've never. And thankfully and very, gratefully, I've never experienced big T trauma. But I mean, there are the small things in life that accumulate and that just happen. And some people say it's trauma. Other people like me was like, well, that's just life. Move on and get on with things. So what I'm trying to say is, if people think I don't need TRE because I've never experienced trauma, don't make the same mistake as I. I mean, I lost all these years before I revisited TRE, and now I know, and that's probably why I'm so evangelical about it, how much it can do, even with the little day-to-day stresses and the aches and pains. Nothing is able to shift, or the anxiety people experience because their nervous system is up here rather than here on a healthy baseline, and they are hypervigilant or always in kind of this constant fight or flight and where's the danger. And probably jumping ahead of myself, I'm talking too much, but does it make sense to you,
No,
Colin?
no, it's you've said. I think you've said so much that makes sense to me. So I want to just pick up on a few points, and just one of the earlier ones about sort of the pharmaceutical industry. And strangely enough, I've had quite a few conversations recently where people have started coming out and sort of saying, there's these alternatives, there's a different way, and that conversation about masking the symptoms. So oftentimes we go to the doctors or health professional saying, oh, we've got this problem with a part of our body or whatever it is. And then we get a drug that just basically dulls that down.
Yes.
And so we think that the problem's been solved, but
Yes.
actually something else pops up. And so the way that I always sort of come back to is that we're just masking the symptoms.
Yes.
We're not actually fixing the root cause.
Yes.
And I think that's super interesting. So I had a conversation on Monday with a lady called Amber, and she's looking at migraines. And she's looking at I think it was 5 different paths. The environment that you're in, the food, etc. And so it's actually very interesting. When people start to look at it, and you go, yes, and you said the word nature has so many of the answers, and it's really strange that we somehow, I don't know, I want to say just for pure profit ways, we've gone away from old ways about thinking about things to trying to create these new fancy solutions to things, but they're ultimately not the answer. And nature has been around for, however long, and it
Yes.
has so many of the answers. And
Yes.
I know when you think about, people that live in the jungle and live off the land, like they have
Yes.
so many of these answers from nature, and it's like,
Yes.
and somehow we think that we're more cleverer than that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that there's not
Exactly.
some benefits in medical advancement, but
Absolutely.
actually we've kind of we're looking in the wrong direction, and yeah, I think that's such an important um aspect, because I think I don't know if that's the way society is or how it's happened, but we seem to want these quick fixes. We want to wake up
Absolutely.
tomorrow and everything's
Absolutely.
okay. And so
Yeah.
we often think that popping a pill will
Yeah.
solve all of that.
Yeah.
And I'm reminded of in myself, like I don't get me wrong, I'm not saying anything, because I've been like that. I've wanted to wake up, had a good night's sleep, and wanted to be superhuman. But the reality is, things do take time. They are small steps, and those small steps are often the building blocks for a very resilient foundation of confidence and self-esteem and things like that. Yet we want to just wake up and go, no, I'm confident or whatever
Yeah.
overnight, and it doesn't
Yeah.
work that way. And we seem to want these quick results. Now, saying all that, I know there are things that you can do. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
Sylvia, go on.
It's the quick fix. And also what I feel our health system doesn't really acknowledge is the prevention. So we can potentially do so much more before we realize, oh shit, now I'm really ill. Yeah. So I mean that's the old saying, prevention is better than cure. And if you watch what you put into your body and your mind as well, your attitude, what you consume, the social media input, whatever it is, um, you feel better.
Yeah, yeah. So I live in Luxembourg at the moment, but obviously I'm from the UK, and I went back for Easter to see my family.
Mm,
And it I remember going into one of the supermarkets there, and I started to feel a bit, I want to say sick, not physically sick, but the amount of Easter eggs that were there,
yes.
it was just
Yes.
this high consumption. It was
Yes.
almost floor to ceiling Easter eggs, and
Yes.
it just made me feel stranger for how much we actually consume. And then I think the idea is to sort of blame supermarkets, etc. But actually, it starts with us. If we don't keep buying all of these things,
Yes.
then the data will show, oh, people aren't buying them. We'll
Yes.
do less of them.
Yes.
Supermarkets, I think, do seem to get a bad rap, but they're only not only, I know their idea is to, make profits. That's business. But it's it's largely based on data. And
Yes.
so what we're consuming, they're going, oh, okay, now we're going to add another
Of
10% to that
course.
because we were running out of this.
Yes.
And I think, just to that point, and we'll move on to the trauma thing in a second, but I think it's never going to change if we just keep consuming at the same rate. And again, there's no judgment here, because I was one of those people that went in and brought Easter eggs for my nieces and nephews and my kids. And you go, oh, okay. But I think all of that has to be sort of conscious decisions, and
Mhm.
it's not always easy. Especially I'm a person that loves sweets and chocolates. That when you're surrounded by it, and you go, oh yeah, I'm just going to take that off the shelf.
Yeah.
It just,
Yeah.
I think it's just creating that pause in my own world to say, do I really need that? Is that going to help me
Well, eighty
or help
twenty,
my kids,
Colin.
etc.?
Eighty
Yeah,
twenty. Yeah,
exactly.
80% of the time good. Then you can have the,
Yes.
well, annual Easter egg and obviously the Christmas treat as well. But yeah, it's generally too much. I mean, I spoke to somebody just yesterday who said her husband says cornflakes for breakfast are healthy. It's fine. And she's like, no, it's not healthy. Look at the small print and the ingredient list, and it's full of sugar. Yeah, we are being sold the idea, oh, that's a healthy, quick breakfast. But when you look into it and see the sugar amount, it's not. But I mean, obviously, it's probably more exciting than porridge.
Yeah. But it's that 80/20, I think, is such an important thing, because
Yes,
we can go the other way, right? We can go for perfectionism. We can go for, there's nothing that I'm going to eat, or,
yeah, I know.
I'm not going to have any sugar. And then that just creates a life of almost resentment and just,
Misery.
yeah, exactly. So that balance, I think life is about enjoying, and,
Yes,
you've already talked about that, and we'll get to it in a second, but that, life isn't about being perfect. It's, yes, there are people that, want to, have everything 100% that way. That's fine. But for the majority of us, and I would include myself, just go, yes, it's nice for a sweet and a treat. But
treat.
when, yeah, a treat is not an everyday or multiple
Yes,
per day. It's, once in a while. And
yes,
I think if we were just a bit kinder to ourselves from the beginning, and just sort of
yes,
say, yeah, look, that's acceptable that I do this. I'm not, I'm not going against all my values just to have an
yes,
Easter egg. But
yes,
yeah, again, moderation and care in that, and that just takes a little bit of consciousness. That
yes,
I think that's such a lovely way, because I think deep down, a lot of us are very hard on ourselves. That script in our head, that critic, that voice in our head. Often we often beat ourselves up. I know I do, but I'm getting better at it. But I think it's just, okay, yeah, just be aware, don't spiral off and say, oh, I've eaten 12 Easter eggs. Just go, yeah, okay, how could I maybe make that a bit better tomorrow? But just being kind
yes,
to ourselves,
yes,
but understanding life is about enjoyment, but just not,
absolutely.
I don't know, going the other way. Okay, so let's just jump into the trauma part of it, because you said something that was really interesting to me. That when we think about trauma, we think about, these huge events,
Yes,
and it's really strange, because all of the work that I've done on myself, a lot of it, I dug into a lot of my childhood,
yes,
and I had a very good childhood. Like, there was no, abuse or anything like that. I had a little bit of bullying at school,
mhm,
etc. Um, so I couldn't work out, and I often went, well, I had a very good childhood. My mum and dad were there. I felt loved. I didn't have the overexertion, oh, that you're the best or anything like that. But I had a very good childhood. So oftentimes I was like, well, that feels quite unfair to sort of look at my past and say, okay, and when you hear other stories of, child abuse, or,
mhm,
these big events, people losing parents, friends, etc., and you think of those things as trauma. But I realized over time that trauma has different levels, but
yes,
someone else's trauma that could be, let's say child abuse versus mine of a small amount of bullying in school, whilst you would think they cannot be comparable, my brain was just associating
yes,
that at the time with the child's brain, and you internalize it.
mhm,
And you do that with a child's brain. Oftentimes, if these things have happened earlier on, you look at it with a child's brain, and it just kind of evolves. And you don't really, that it exists. You remember like the bullying, or
mhm,
whatever, and you just go, oh, well, I'm bigger now. I'm, um, I've moved past that.
mhm,
But to your point, that's often in your body. You've
mhm,
swallowed that. You've probably maybe not talked about it, or
mhm,
at the time you didn't want to share it, or whatever. But and I always think about swallowing, because if we don't express um, those things at that time, and I know there is a world where everyone seems to express everything about
yes,
themselves, which again, I
yes,
don't think is always, but if you swallow those thoughts, feelings, etc., they go into your body, and people. That's how I see it. So, please jump on and say if I'm misunderstanding any of that. But that's where I think. So and that shows up in often other ways like resentment. It's often covered up because the more you swallow, it becomes almost this mix of emotions or things that it takes quite a long time to sort of unpack, because
Yes.
often in my world and through the therapy, I started to go, oh, well, I thought this was maybe something I should look at. And then when I got there, I was like, oh, that's not actually a big deal. It was the thing
Mm.
behind that. And so
Yeah.
it's almost like you've created all these
Yes.
layers.
Yes.
And that for me is traumatic. That is, all of that building up. And it does show in your body. It
Yeah.
shows how you hold yourself, like
Yes.
your frame, etc.
Yes.
So I love the fact that you said, trauma is different, and we shouldn't just think that we don't have trauma, because
Yes.
I would imagine we all do, unless we're very self-aware or we've done something to sort of release that. Is that your experience, or am I being overselling that in some way?
No, I mean, some voices say, and I probably agree, that life begins in a traumatic way. Because when you think for the first 9 months of your life, you were in your mother's womb and you were cocooned and cushioned, and all the noises were kind of softened, and it was just must have been bliss. And then once the birth starts, you need to, as the baby, as the tiny one, you need to go through this birth canal, which is, I don't know, I mean, obviously we don't remember, but just the pure fact, it's narrow, it might be painful even for yourself. And then you are in this bright room with noises and, yeah, bright light, and it's cold because you are naked. Um, and many people say life begins in a traumatic way. And I think that makes sense.
And
And
I think also, sorry, just to that
yeah,
point,
yeah,
also, um, I even think just before that, if the mother's going through some traumatic
yes,
events before, because
yes,
pregnancies are not always easy. There's
yes,
a lot of stress and worry and anxiety
absolutely.
around that anyway. So, and I often feel that babies might feel that. I have no
Yeah, they do.
data or anything
Yes,
to. So I think, oh,
yes.
and you know, I've often wondered, is some of my things before I was born or during, and
Hmm.
like you say, in that
Yeah.
in that that idea, coming through the birth canal, and even thinking about my first daughter, my ex-wife, she was in labour for quite a long time,
Mm.
and in the end, it was an emergency C-section, and my daughter came out and she stopped breathing, and she had
Hmm.
to go into um, neonatal. Um, and that, I mean, she's absolutely fine. But you go, well, actually, that's quite scary. Like you're taken away from your mother, immediately put into
Yeah.
a isolation
Yeah.
box, and I mean, you wouldn't know it, but you think, oh, maybe, just
Absolutely.
maybe, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's how you as a baby perceives things in the womb, definitely. But there's also intergenerational trauma. And I mean, this is a fact. Even what your grandparents experienced, said, well, not necessarily centuries, but decades ago in their lives, can have an influence on who you are today. Yeah. And what is coming up. Um, through, yeah, intergenerational trauma.
And how is that? Is that through because you're surrounded by those people, or is that in
You're
through
surrounded,
DNA, or
but you have the genetic imprint, and it's like you are, yeah, a product of like this line of genes and family, yeah, relationships and nature in a way. Yeah.
so that's super interesting because I've there's a couple of people I can think of that they, they're very different people than their sort of family, and they've actually moved away from their family. And I think that they still struggle with the way that their families were, and they kind of carry it with them,
Mhm.
almost like a backpack,
Mhm.
oh, I don't know if that's like expectation through culture, through
Mhm.
anything, but
Everything, yeah.
you can see that they're trying to get away, but they're almost, that backpack is kind of like
Mhm.
um attached to them, and they can't let it go. And you can see that there would be a lightness from them if they could do that. So is that, can that be, can that backpack, or that feeling, can that be done through trauma release?
That's a big question. Um,
Yeah.
I I wouldn't promise that. And when it says, can I also clarify, when it says tension and trauma releasing exercises, I always say it's the trauma symptoms, because the trauma is the event in the past. You can't get rid of the event in the past. That's what happened to you in the past. Um, but the symptoms you experience now, maybe it's physical pain, maybe it's the anxiety or the big anger somebody is experiencing because of that past event. This is definitely something like TAE can help you with. Yeah,
I,
but a
so
trauma
I,
is really an event in the past. And
yeah.
yes, this happened, you can't change it, you can't go back, but you can like soften your reaction to it and the symptoms that might occur because you got that treatment, or the neglect. It doesn't always have to be um, like your parents were treating you badly. It doesn't have to be. They might have just neglected you and ignored you because you weren't important, or you weren't seen, or yeah, you couldn't express who you are, and so on and so on. So yes, yes.
It's I think that point about the event doesn't go away, because
Mhm,
that's I think sometimes we misunderstand. We think that we can erase that from our memory, right? We think,
mhm,
oh, if that goes away, then I'll be okay. But
mhm,
it's not. So someone said to me the other day, there's been events in my life where I uh, eh, sort of been quite pivotal. I can think about 5 or 6 over my life. And someone said, "Oh, what would you do? Like, which one of those would you like to get rid of?" And I said, "None of them,
mhm.
because I wouldn't be the person I am
Yes,
today." And
yes,
there's wisdom in all of these things.
yes.
And if you look at these events in your life, they're often, again, it's easy to talk about my life, and it's quite straightforward in many ways, but it's taught me something. There was lesson in there, and maybe at the time I couldn't understand what it was, but in hindsight, you go,
Absolutely.
"Oh,
Yes.
that was teaching me something." So
Yes.
I've never. I think for a while I was trying to get away from who I was, and
Mm.
the reality is I don't. I'm very happy who I am. Um, yeah, I'd like maybe a bit more of an athletic build or something like that. But I'm for the first time, I'm pretty comfortable with
Mhm.
how I look and how I am, and
Mm.
I'm still working on it. It's a work in progress, but
Yes.
um, I never want to erase those memories, because it really taught me something. And again, if we can go back and look at it objectively, because I think oftentimes we take those events and we make that almost our identity.
Mhm.
And if you can remove yourself from that and just go, okay, what did I learn? It can give, well, it's certainly for me, it gave me some a better understanding and some
Yes.
distance. But when you were talking about how that shows up in terms of like tension in your body,
Mhm.
that's really interesting, because um, uh, for the longest time, I thought that my brain held all the answers, and I have quite a logical
Yes.
brain. And so I would
Yes.
often try to think things
Yes.
through, or try to solve
Yes.
things by rationalizing
Yes.
things. And
Yes.
I was like, oh, okay, if this, and then it becomes almost like an internal battle in your mind. And then I started, and the way I used to think about my body was that my brain ran the show, and my body
Mhm.
just like sort of carried me along. And I
Yes.
really didn't like the way that I looked as a kid. And so I didn't really have a lot of respect. But now I'm like, wow, I'm 47. My body has carried me for 47
Yes.
years and done all of
Yes.
this. And once you start opening up that door, you realize how miraculous your body is,
Yes.
what it can do.
Yes.
My heart's been pumping for
Yes.
47 years
Yes.
non-stop.
Yes.
And you go, and there's so much wisdom in it.
Yes.
Yet we ignore it a lot of the
Totally.
times,
Totally.
and those symptoms that come up, they're messages, right? There are,
Yes.
look, something's going on,
Yes.
and that's the first clue that there's something. So I know I'm doing a lot of talking. Apologies for that, but
No, it's fascinating. And
where
I so agree with this. I mean, we are up here generally because, I mean, we live in the 21st century. We are generally super educated. We are very intelligent, and we are like, well, we rule the world and our own world as well. And that happens here. I was exactly the same. Yes. It never ever occurred to me to work with the body. And like you, when I had periods in my life where I was, well, not happy with the situation, or I needed a bit help, I went and saw, well, a psychologist or a counselor. I had CBT at some stage. Yeah, because we need to talk, analyze, and make sense of the whole situation. And I have to say, I never never stuck as long as you, and your experience must have been a really helpful one, the way you are talking about it. But to me, it wasn't doing anything. So I then thought, at one stage I wanted to train as a bereavement counselor, because I'm like, I want to help people to get over. I mean, I had some big bereavements and losses in my life, and I was like, yeah, how can I help people and what can I do? Yeah, let's train as a bereavement counselor. Also, counseling didn't do anything for me. Yeah, but we are here, and exactly what you said. We ignore the body. The body helps us to whatever, move from A to B or just function, and we take it for granted. If something doesn't work, you go to your doctor and you're like I mean, when I was in my stressful IT jobs, I had toothache, and it wasn't my tooth or anything else. It was because I was grinding my teeth. Well, that's the pressure and the tension I was holding in my jaw because I was super stressed. Yeah, I went to my dentist and I was like, God, I have terrible toothache and I need help. Check, check, check. Nothing wrong. You're stressed. And I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, I love my job. It can't be that bad. You're stressed. Do something to calm down or to de-stress. And I remember I went home and said to my friend, um, every time a doctor doesn't know what's wrong with you, they blame stress. It's a silly excuse. Well, now 30 years later, I'm like, oh my God, they were so right. Yeah. Because again, it's the mind body connection. You're super stressed and you're teeth grinding, or you notice a tension in your jaw, or your tummy plays up because you have a nervous sensitive tummy, an IBS, and whatever the symptoms are, or you have a tension headache or migraines because it's the stress. Yeah. Because the body keeps the
yeah,
score. Or as Gabor Mate, he says in a really nice book, when the body says no, that's exactly what you said earlier on, until the body gives you a signal, hey, hey, look after me. Why have I got these headaches? And why have I mainly headaches when I'm super stressed? Or maybe at the weekend when I kind of calm down because it's the weekend, but then the stress kicks in. I mean, the mind-body connection is extremely fascinating. And yeah, as you also said before, Colin, the body knows and the body has the answer. That's a fact.
yeah. It reminds me. So I worked with a young guy. He had a burnout,
Hmm.
and he was so generous with sharing his story. And I think he'd lived his whole life through his mind, just going faster. If something needed doing, then he would do it. I think he played sports as a young person, and then he was into music, but he had a full-time job in finance, and he shared his his burnout story. And I'd spoken to him before. I didn't know him that well at the time. I spoke to him just before he actually went through the burnout. And I realized that he couldn't get that connection. Like his mind was running the show. You could see that
Yes.
something was
Yes.
going on, but his mind was literally on its last sort of, it was just still trying to go. And then he said, basically, when he said his body couldn't do anything after that. So he said he would get up, he would walk to the sofa, and he would be tired.
Yes.
And then he would go back to bed, and that lasted quite a long time. And then I think he tried to go back and use his brain at some point, and it was his body's way of saying, no, you need to pay attention, you need to look around. And it was super interesting, and I'm always grateful for him sharing that. He did it in such a nice way. And then I realized, burnout is your body saying, enough now. I've been screaming at you, telling you to slow down. You're not listening. This is the result of what I'm going to have to do for
Shut
you
down.
to actually listen to me. Yeah. And I think when it gets to that stage, it's basically, I'd say he was in burnout at least a year. And then trying to get back, he really had to take slow steps, and he would get very fatigued very quickly. And I was like, oh, okay. And as you were saying that about the, at the weekends, we were okay. But I think we get so busy, and, we talked about consumption, etc., so busy with work. We're all connected. We all want to do. Even this morning, I was thinking, oh, I've got quite a calm day. I wrote a list of 16 things to add to my to-do list. And I was like, geez. But we get over-consumed with all of these things that we're not paying attention to ourselves. We're just go, 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 go.
Yes.
And actually sitting and trying to listen to our bodies, we never really do it. And we never get a moment to do it. So we have to be really intentional, even to understand. And even then, when we sit quiet, like myself, I was sitting there going, oh, okay, great. Yeah, 16 things come up. My brain's taking over, right?
Yes.
And so it's super interesting. And so I try to meditate. I do different things, different breath works. And the best time is when I actually try and understand what's going on for my body. But oftentimes I'm sending a signal to my brain to say, tell me what's wrong with my body. And it's like, no, don't go up there to understand what's going on. Try and feel into your body.
Yes.
But we do seem to run around so much that we don't create space. We're always like, oh, if we've got a free moment, right, we're going to do this. I'm going to watch social media, or I can't sit in silence. So, but in terms of like the people that you work with, and it kind of links to something you were saying about going to the doctors, and they were talking about stress, etc. I would imagine that a lot of people have sort of chronic illnesses or something, or symptoms. And that can be very frustrating when you go to the doctors and they run all these tests, etc., and it has nothing to do with that. And that can be very exhausting in itself. You've tried all the normal routes, going to go and see the doctors, had a scan, had a blood work, etc. But these things aren't going to show up in there, right? Is that my understanding?
No, it's totally right. I mean, it's a psychosomatic pain where thankfully nothing is seriously wrong. Yeah, I mean, if you have toothache and there's something rotten in your mouth, I mean, obviously the dentist needs to attend to it. But if there's nothing wrong, well, thankfully all your teeth are all right. But they're not all right if you're constantly grinding your teeth. Same with whatever, headaches could be caused by a tumor. But if thankfully this isn't the case, it's most likely that it's stress and stress and tension related. So absolutely. And usually my clients, I mean, because sadly TAE is still so niche, my client said, "Oh, we've tried everything, nothing helps. And maybe we should bring the body into the equation. Or I've heard good things about TAE, maybe that can help me." That's usually how it works.
And is there a common ailment? Like, we sort of say in the body, is it an ache, a pain? Is it like I think that the body is very intelligent. It will show
Yes,
you a rash as a signal, right? It's not,
yes,
and most people go, oh, it's an allergy or something. I'm just going to
yes.
put some cream on it. But do you see common things showing up, certain patterns relating to certain things, or it's different for everybody?
It's different for everybody, but the common denominator is really tension we're holding in the body. Yeah, and as an well, result of stress. I mean, many studies say even up to 90% of all symptoms are caused by too much stress. That's what I said earlier on. I mean, when I blamed my dentist for using that as an excuse, no, it's not an excuse. Yeah, it's a really high percentage um, of symptoms that are caused by stress. And then the symptoms can be different. I mean, it could be the person who has constant headaches or migraines, or person with backaches, shoulder pain. Um, yeah, we mentioned the teeth grinding, we mentioned the tummy. These are all symptoms caused by stress. And on the other hand, the emotional patterns, it's anxiety. Yeah, when we are constantly anxious, in this what I said before, high stress level, high nervous system, um, and fight and flight, anxiety, menopausal, but in brackets, it doesn't have to be menopausal, but irritability when somebody is constantly on edge, anger, but also people like, I mean, I've worked with people who presented with ME, chronic fatigue. I've worked with people who had Parkinson's or after a stroke. And I'm not saying TAE in any way is a cure, not at all. But it helps people to just find that bit of calmness and find the calm in not being, let's say, worried about tremoring because of their Parkinson. The woman I worked with recently said, "Oh my God, I just feel my head is so much emptier. I feel so much younger." And that is just a few minutes of practice. Or people with ME who really struggle. I mean, that's similar to the burnout symptoms you mentioned about this person you referred to earlier on, when you just don't have any energy because your body is stuck in the constant fight or flight. And it's like the main purpose of your body is just to keep you alive, and everything else is kind of shut down. And I've worked with so many people who say, "God, Sylvia, yeah, we have this appointment today, but I'm not sure if I can do anything because I'm so exhausted." And then we took it gently and easily and slowly, and the person got into the tremoring process of TAE. And afterwards, they were like even pain-free for a few hours afterwards. I mean, it's our bodies are amazing. That's all I can say, and we can tap into that. David Berceli, by the way, who created TAE, he said, and I think also it so sums it up, because it's an internal mechanism, this tremoring mechanism I was referring to. And he said there's an undiscovered gift inside the human body, and he's just there to tell people, well, trying to help people, and say, use that gift because it's designed to help you. And that's the power of our body and the power of the system and the power of what we can do for ourselves.
It's as you were saying, it's really strange because oftentimes, like, I go, "Oh, I'm not stressed," or I I I think I'm quite relaxed about stuff. But oftentimes, I especially when I got into sort of meditating, one of the things I do is just take a really deep breath. And as soon as I go, and then when I release that, like my body relaxes and I go, geez, like how stressed was my body?
Yes,
I, I needed to take a deep breath and then
yes,
my body's relaxed. And we
yes,
think that like stress is like this, like you could see it like a fist, like you would
yes,
see it as everything. But actually, it exists all the time. You're holding yourself.
yes.
And again, I don't know if it's because we're ignoring it or because it's more subtle than that or what it is. But actually, we are stressed a lot of the time and we have it in our bodies. And yet, the only time we tend to relax is when we go to bed. But actually, and I do it with
Yeah,
myself and I
no,
go, blimey, like you go, "Phew, like how long have I been holding that for?"
yeah,
But the weird thing is you go, "Yeah, that's really strange. That's amazing. I've just let that go." 2 minutes later, I'm back in the like,
yeah,
holding myself
yeah.
really tight, and you go, "Oh." And it is well, as you were sort of saying about sort of people in fight or flight, it's, and anxiety, I kind of see those almost overlapping in my mind because I'm aware of, and I don't know if this is wrong to say, but the people that come into my mind are ladies, and I think they're trying to balance so much in their lives. Look after the kids, probably
Yes,
have a job,
yes,
trying to run a household or whatever.
yes.
And they're doing incredible jobs, but you can see the anxiety. It's almost when you start to talk to them, they're not really paying attention. It's almost like
Mm,
it's an inconvenient to talk, and they're almost a bit twitchy, almost
mhm,
in a way.
mhm,
And so I was really interested in. So you talked about laughing yoga, and when
mhm.
you say when you talked about that, I actually love laughter. I think it's such uh, a brilliant way to de-stress
Yes,
and just
yes.
realize that maybe you're taking life a bit too seriously. And I've always found, especially when I was younger, I loved like stand-up comedy, watching it on TV. It was just something really amazing. I was like, oh, and oftentimes I found that if I just am around people that make me laugh,
Yes,
it's like the biggest drug for me. It's just
yes.
so and then my mind opens up. I start to, I will start to try and be funny myself, make connections, and I become quite creative because
Yeah,
I'm relaxed.
perfect. You summed it up, Colin. You summed it. That's exactly the effect. And similar to TAE, we work with the nervous system. So bringing the nervous system down on a healthy baseline, because when you laugh, you are in the parasympathetic states, which means rest and digest, and you're relaxed and you're in a good state. You can't be in the stressed sympathetic stage at the same time. So you are already, just by laughing, even if you're faking the laughter, you are in a relaxed state. And then the more you laugh, the more you work with your nervous system and yeah, enable and encourage the nervous system just to calm down and find its normal baseline again. And you're totally right. Afterwards, your mind is clearer. You might be more creative. You feel more connected to the people around you, and your outlook is just more positive. Absolutely. I mean, laughter is healing. That's again, there are so many studies about laughter and how healthy it is, and how, I mean, you've heard of hospital clowns, and you heard of maybe, wait a minute, s- Patch Adams, the film about the hospital doctor. Have you,
Yeah,
have you heard
yes,
that?
yeah, yeah.
Or recently,
Robin Williams, yeah,
I wasn't aware, even when I trained in laughter yoga. There's this guy called Norman something. He had a terminal diagnosis and was like, well, what shall I do? I mean, I will die in a few days. I just make the most of it and enjoy life. So he went to bed and he watched all these funny movies and funny comedy shows and literally laughed himself to health. I mean, this is incredible. He lived for another 20 odd years until he then died of something totally unrelated to his initial diagnosis. I mean, it's yeah, I mean, our bodies know, I mean, if we give them the right environment and help, I mean, it's much more than kind of obviously laughter or practicing TAE, but it's movement in general, it's healthy food, it's plenty of water, it's de-stressing your life, obviously, and then, yeah, your bodies or our bodies will thrive. I'm convinced of it, and I see it all the time.
It's I was just thinking how useful, the work that you do, because it's almost an entry point, like we said, people have tried everything else and then they come to you. But actually, when they come to you and they start to open that door and understand about their body rather than, through the mind, or, thinking that, prescription drugs or whatever is going to solve it, that starts, maybe helping people to see and appreciate their bodies much more, and
Absolutely.
understanding there's messages in there, how you can look after yourself, and in such a healthy way, and reconnecting with their bodies, right? Is that how, maybe it isn't the case, but, once people go, oh, okay, I didn't realize, like
Mhm.
me, everything was existing in my head. And then you start to pay attention to your body. Do you find your clients then change more around their body and how they look after their body? Is that a thing, or is that
I
not the
don't
case?
get that feedback after the course that they then say, "Oh, now I mean, opened up or followed on with other things." I don't know about that. But when I work with people in TAE, they experience their body that like they've never experienced their bodies before. And then they also, probably similar to my own experience, their mind is saying, "What am I doing? This is absolutely ridiculous." Yeah, I'm lying on the floor, on the yoga mat, and I start shaking. And your brain goes like, "Sylvia, I mean, what are you doing? It's silly. But then I always say, okay, that's your brain telling you. Please listen to your body or feel your body, not listen, but feel your body. What's happening in your body? How do you, and I mean, if people, I mean, some depends on what they present with, but sometimes they say straight away, my nervous tummy isn't as gurgly as it is. It's settled down, or I notice the tension leaving my lower back. Um, Sometimes obviously it takes longer, but these are examples of people who realize straight away, wow, something is happening. And what I mean is everybody says afterwards, oh my God, that was extremely relaxing. I feel like I've just been, I don't know, on holiday or had a massage or a spa treatment. And the most difficult thing is then getting off that yoga mat again and facing the real world, because it's just a mini treatment you can give yourself in a few minutes. And that's how people then, I'd say, experience the power of their own body and the effect it can have, or they can, yeah, the gift they can give themselves. I don't know if they then go on and change whatever their diet or their general de-stress routine, but yeah, that's might be a starting point, and to see the body and yeah, how they can heal and help themselves.
Um, as you were saying that, you mentioned the word spa, and I um I was thinking that the sort of connection, because oftentimes we go, oh yeah, I've been really stressed, I'm going to go to the spa, and
Yes.
spas generally cost a lot of money, or you've got
Hmm.
to book them up. And then I was thinking, oh wow, like um how amazing would it be that you don't have to go to a spa? We always think, oh, we've got to go here, we've got to go to this fancy spa, and
Hmm.
the results are, you know, they're short lived. You might feel
Yes.
great and then you go and eat something,
Yes.
whatever. but actually they can come to you. I was just thinking though, do they have to physically come to you, or do you do online sessions? Does that work in what you do?
Almost all of my clients I see online. Unlike
Oh,
in
okay.
a spa or a physiotherapist, I don't need to touch people. I am here and well, they don't require my touch, they require my presence. So my job is to make the person feel really safe and really confident and to get out of their head. Because if they are too much in their head, they won't allow their body to do what their body wants to do, as in the shaking of TRE. So yeah, I teach mainly online, and you're absolutely right. I mean, a massage is amazing. And I mean, the touch you get from another human being is also amazing. Yeah, so I don't dismiss that. But as you said, it's short-lived. Then you leave the spa and the world outside is buzzing and busy, and yeah, you're back after a few hours, I suppose, to your normal stress levels and to your normal environment. But really taking then a few minutes out of your busy day, get on the mat and shake. This is what many people describe. This is my spa treatment. And we say in TAE, you give your body an internal massage. So not from the outside, like um, dissolving the knots and everything you're holding, what a massage therapist then does. And from the outside, we do it like from the inside, because when we tremor, it just loosens up the muscle, it relaxes the muscles, the fascia. So the effect is yeah, I'd say the same. Apart obviously from the touch, you don't have another human being touching you.
Is It's just so the shaking, is that a involuntary thing, or is that
Yes.
actually part of it? You ask someone to shake that, or so how does that work?
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's involuntary. So I always say TAE is shaking, but not a la Taylor Swift. So when you shake it off a la Taylor Swift, you're dancing wildly and you direct your body and you're like, yeah, let's shake the hips and the arms and move here. This is what your brain is telling your body how to do it and what to do and how to perform. But you're absolutely right. In TAE, the shaking is involuntary, which also scares many people, like, oh my God, I'm losing control. No, you're not losing control. The first thing I teach is how to stop it. Yeah, I teach people how to get into the tremoring process, to allow, well, shut up the mind and allow the body to do it, but then immediately show them. And when you stretch out your legs, you stop the process. So you are always in control. Um, but when people say, oh, I've seen on your website you shake like this, and I don't. I'm like, yeah, okay, this is my body, and I've been practicing for 6 years. And your body is only just starting and is a totally different body. So you are holding stress most likely in totally different areas. Trust your body. You don't tell your body how to start your heartbeat. You don't tell your body how to start the digestive process. So you don't tell your body how to shake, because this is, yeah, as you said, totally involuntary. And this is our innate reaction to react and resolve stress accumulating. So when you every mammal has it. And when you think of dogs, for instance, when dogs encounter a stressful situation, what do? They shake very quickly, very briefly, and then life is good again. Then they go and they're happy again. Same with animals in the wild. I mean, probably heard the story of the panda bear being chased, and not panda bear, the bear somewhere in the wilderness being chased, and then manages to escape, and then afterwards they're shaking, and this is the whole principle. So that's our body's normal reaction to stress. So genetically and evolutionary, when we were out hunting and gathering and the wild beast came, we had two options. We either fled and run away, which is fabulous, because through running and through the movement, that's the same. The body burns down these stress hormones. So you feel, well, first of all, you've escaped the wild beast, but then also you don't have the stress hormones in your system any longer because you've moved them off. But nowadays we don't move, we don't run away from. I mean, you have an argument with your partner or a client or your boss, you're not running away. And so this movement is kind of missing in order to bring us back to equilibrium. But then retrospectively, you can give your body a chance to release that. That's why so many people feel so much better when they say, I'm stressed, I go for a run. I go to the gym. Yeah. This
Yeah.
is giving your body, it's like a valve. You let off steam and you give your body a chance to, burn off these stress hormones.
As you were saying there, I was thinking about, oh yeah, you know, you see it when someone's maybe had a car accident and they've got out and they're shaking, and you go,
That's
oh,
it.
that's
Yes.
and then I was thinking as you were saying, oh, you're dealing with a boss and and you kind of, I guess, in this fight or flight, they're having a go at you, and then we we almost suppress that because I would suggest because it's not a natural thing that we do. When you've had a car accident, you're standing out there and you go off, and then you're shaking. It's almost
Yes.
acceptable, but not in most of your life. If you've had a your boss has had a shout at you or whatever,
Yes.
and then you start shaking, that's almost a little bit shameful. That thought came in my head, and you go, "Oh no, I can't do that." So you're gonna try and suppress that.
Yes. Yes. And usually the brain wins. So you might be in this argument and you might like, oh my God, I'm not feeling well in here. Yeah. And you try like, come on, hold yourself together, keep a stiff upper lip, tension here. Yeah. And don't show vulnerability. That's your
Yeah,
brain then
yeah,
helping. I mean, we live in the 21st century. We don't show vulnerability. We don't admit there is like fear somewhere. Um, but yeah, as you said, exactly that. In after a car accident, you see people and their knees are wobbly, they are shaking. But and I always want to say, if people listening to that and only remember one thing, my big request is don't go to this person and tell them to calm down, because this is our natural instinct, right? I've heard it so many times. Calm down. It's not that bad. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to shake. You'll be fine and you're still alive. That's the worst thing you can do. Yeah. Give the person the space to shake and tell them this is your body supporting you. You shake it off like a dog does, and then you'll have, well, most likely less problems afterwards. It's the same with many women shake after childbirth. Don't know if you've seen that with when you were present or not, but many
yeah.
women,
I was thinking because I remember my ex-wife. She got cold, and so she started shaking that way. Is that the same thing or something different?
yeah, people think they get cold, or the medical profession says, oh, you're cold, you're shivering, you're cold, I get you a blanket. It's the body helping to get over this big stress. And it doesn't have to be a traumatic birth. Just a normal birth is a huge, yeah, stress on the woman's system. I spoke to so many midwives who say, yes, women often shake. So many midwives say, well, we don't really know what to do. We bring them a blanket. And I spoke to one woman in particular who said, wow, now I understand why I was shaking. And she instinctively knew it was a good thing and she allowed her body to do it. And she said, well, I just do it. Just really instinctively. She didn't know what she was doing, what her body was up to. She just trusted, and she was like, well, if my body wants to shake, my body wants to shake. Now she claims that this shake has helped her to prevent postnatal depression, because she said all the signs were there. I had a really, really difficult pregnancy. I wasn't in a good, healthy relationship. It was everything was like pointing, oh, you'll have postnatal depression afterwards. And having understood that her body helped her through the shaking process to get over that big, not saying birth trauma, because maybe, I mean, in her case, she said it was a traumatic birth, but about this, her body helped her to get over the stressful event. And that's half the battle. Yeah. Where then people say, okay, I feel much better afterwards than having all this or leaving all these stress hormones in my body and suffering afterwards. And midwives who know about the shaking process have confirmed that to me. Yeah.
It's I think you've made me even more and more curious, but it makes perfect sense. We seem to. I'm just thinking about childbirth. We seem to just gloss over it like it's okay. Yeah, you're giving birth. Yeah, we know it's going to be a big deal for the mother, and
Mhm.
now obviously, as we talked about, maybe for the baby as well. But we kind of go, yeah, but if you think about it logically, like how big a deal that is, and yet we don't. We kind of just gloss over it and go, yeah, the lady gave birth. But actually, being able to reset your nervous system and to process all of that through shaking, you go, yeah, and how often we ignore all of those things, we suppress them,
Yeah.
etc. It's quite basic, really,
Mhm.
but we're ignoring it, And I think, do you know what? As I got older, and again, we talked earlier about sort of the medical profession. We seem to want to come up with these very sophisticated things, but most of the things were already there. We've just forgotten them, or
Yes,
we've
exactly.
moved past them, looking for some more I don't know, complex solution. And
Yes.
I know we
Yes.
are complex, but often the time, a lot of the time, is the solution is very simple. And
Absolutely.
I think about that,
Absolutely.
you know, even in the consumption of everything, social media, whatever,
Mm.
food, whatever. The solution can be okay, just do a little bit less.
Yes.
It's,
Yes.
uh, um,
And that also
wow.
reminds me, the communities we call as primitive, yeah, indigenous people. Well, what do? They dance, they shake, their tribe somewhere, they call themselves the keeper of the shake. And that's their way. I mean, shaking is one of the oldest medicines. But we, well, as the Western, highly educated people living in the 21st century, we just dismiss it. Well, these are primitive people. Yeah, of course, they don't have anything else. Poor them. Yeah, no, they know. They know because they still have the body connection and the wisdom. I mean, it's the wisdom of the body. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm very conscious of time. I think it's such a fascinating subject, and part of this, I was like, we could all do with that, because I'm actually quite curious to know what I'm holding on to. Like, I'd be curious to have a session with you and just sort of see what's there.
But that's one thing. You're curious to know what you're holding on to. You won't know because we are not involving your brain. So when I started TAE, I had terrible lower back and hip pain, and I had no idea why. I thought I was in a really good place. Felt all right. I felt safe. Everything was good. And I still had this back pain. And like many of my clients, I tried everything: yoga, meditation, breathing, the NHS back pain exercise, nothing. TAE helped me to release the tension. And once the tension was gone, The back pain disappeared. But I don't know why I was in pain. And I think
Yeah.
that's also a beautiful thing. We don't need to know. We don't need to analyze. We don't need to revisit any traumatic events, whatever it might have been. Yeah. You won't know after TAE why or what you're holding on to. You just trust your body. Your body knows. And then you release it. And when the tension is gone, and if your symptom was tension related, there's a huge possibility that the symptom is gone as well.
Yeah, I was just thinking that's my logical brain trying to get
Yes,
involved in the process,
yes.
right? So,
Trust your body. Let your body do the job.
is I was thinking like the comparison against therapy. I'll make this my last question because obviously we're running over
That's
time. But I
fine.
think I'm very curious. With different types of therapy, I know there's different schools of thought. People say, oh, well, you should have no more than 10 sessions, etc. How does it work for you? You just keep going until, is it a thing that people just come and because they feel better, and because you're not dealing with a certain, oh, I had a trauma, I had a car crash, I'm dealing with that now. Oh yeah, I lost a grandparent or something, I'm dealing with that. Do the sessions, can it be like one and done, or it's like you have to build up to understand, to really connect with your body because we ignore it all the time? How is there different ways of doing it? Is there a certain approach? How long does it
Yeah.
last, etc.? Any of those details?
TAE is a tool, and I teach you the tool. Once you know how to shake, how to practice safely, how your body reacts, it's yours. And then you can practice until the end of your life. That's the difference. So that's why I always say I teach my clients. I don't treat them. You can learn TAE in one session, and I give you all the tools you need, or you learn it over 4 sessions and then build up what I call a bit more tremoring confidence. Yeah, because I'm still there. I'm holding the space. I'm guiding you. I'm there to make sure you are yeah, feel good and feel safe. And then also once you've practiced for a month, you would come back and I can help you to get even more out of the process when I introduce interventions, which is going deeper than just what you learn in one session. But generally, you learn it, and TAE is your tool. Yes. Yes. So there's no dependency on me that you need to see me 150 times or over 6 years or what. No. And that's also, it's a beautiful thing. It's empowering. Yeah. Next, maybe you see me now because you're curious. In a few weeks' time, you have tension headaches or whatever. I recently had a client who was like on the mat, and she said, and afterwards she said, Sylvia, I had a headache all day long. It's gone now. Again, I'm not promising anything. Most likely her headache was because of tension in her body, because she was able to shake off the tension. The symptom has gone. Yeah, like if she had a tumor and the headache was caused by a tumor, obviously TAE can't help you. Yeah, but if it's tension related, and so on and so on. Yeah.
I was just thinking that how worthwhile is it? As in, it is massively worthwhile. Like I said earlier, we spend so much money on going for a spa treatment.
Yes.
You know, um, to understand this modality of this way of doing something that we can constantly connect with ourselves and understand. Yeah, it's so strange that you know we have all these other techniques, sort of meditation to clear the mind, etc. But I don't think and I know meditation is often about listening to the body,
Mhm.
but we don't really focus on the body. I don't, I'm sure there are, but in my world, I've never really come across anyone that's sort of focusing directly on the body, and
Mm.
that's Yeah, it's
I'm
amazing. Really
I'm
amazing.
not a meditation expert, and I struggle to meditate. But that's another beautiful thing of TAE. We call it is the meditation for people who can't sit still, because you don't need to sit still. You just let your body do what your body needs to do. And I had feedback from one client again just recently. He's a regular meditator, and says, "My goodness, Sylvia, the relaxation, the effect I get after a few minutes of shake is so different." I'm not sure if she said much stronger, but so different from when I meditate. And I'm not dismissing.
And this,
I'm just saying it's for people who want to, who can't sit still, who want to maybe have another, option to again, it's going back to down regulating the nervous system.
yeah, it's I've actually heard that quite a lot from a number of people, because I think, meditation seems, the one answer. Everyone says, well, you should need to meditate and create some space in your life. The argument I've heard from a lot of people is that I can't sit still. I
Yeah,
can't sit there.
yeah,
And that's actually causes them more stress to try and sit still, and because they look around, and we have this tendency to compare and go, oh well, that person's sitting there on a yoga mat or on a meditation stool for an hour, and I can't
yes,
even sit there for a minute. And so
yes.
it's lovely to know that there's a different way, and that and that can help us, and yeah, I think that's brilliant. So Sylvia, from today, this has been amazing. I've got so many questions. I think I'm probably going to spend some time, maybe book a session with you, because I'm quite fascinated by it. But for today, I hope the audience got a load from this conversation, because I certainly didn't. As I said, I'm not a stranger to discovering about myself, but I never knew all of this
Yeah,
existed. So for today, thank you for sharing that. I think it's so useful. You've given me lots to think about, and sort of just to ruminate on in terms of myself. So thank you very much.
thank you,
Obviously,
Colin.
we found each other on. We found ourselves. Sorry, we found each other on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Is that the best place for people to find you, or is there a
Yes, probably,
website?
probably.
Where
And
would you suggest?
my website is tremendous TRE.co.uk.
Okay.
That's the best.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect. Yeah. So I do repost these, and I'll put the link so people can easier find you on LinkedIn and your
fabulous.
website. But for today, honestly, it's a real pleasure. I love these types of conversations where I get to understand something I knew nothing about. And yeah, you've been an amazing guest. So thank you very much for
Thank you,
giving me your
Colin.
time.
Well, I hope you appreciate your body more, and and also everybody keep in mind, please, next time you see somebody shaking, give them the space to let their body do what their body needs to do.
I will definitely do that for sure. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Sylvia.
Thank you,
And yeah,
Colin.
hopefully we'll speak soon.
Yeah, see you on
Okay.
LinkedIn.
Take care of yourself.
Absolutely. Bye. Thank you.
All right. Bye. Hey, it's me again. Just a quick note. I'm trying to grow my audience, but in an intentional way, not to go viral, but to be able to bring you more of these conversations, because I enjoy doing them, and I think there's a lot of value in what my guests have to share. So if you like what you hear, and you're happy to hear about other conversations and learn from those people, then please just click on subscribe. That will give me some data around the conversations that you like, and then you can add some comments along the way. Always give constructive feedback, and I will always take constructive feedback on board. So yeah, if you like, please subscribe and click the bell notification so you do get notified of new episodes. That's it. Thanks very much.